Thank you very much. Yeah, as he stated, my name is Muhammed Salih Güler, and today I will be talking about animations in Flutter, how you can implement it, what are the base concepts about it, and actually what are animations. So let's start with a simple about me part. I work as an Android engineer at a company called OneFootball. It's a company that has an application to bring you the best content about your team, so you can subscribe to your team, and it will bring you some notifications and etc. And yeah, it's an application in both platforms. I'm also a Flutter and Dart GDE. I'm a Google developer expert on both. I organize meetups around Europe, and yeah, I also work with Flutter in production with multiple applications. And I will be also using this experience while I was working with the Flutter with these applications. So let's start with the basic question. Who has heard about Flutter? Raise the hands. Cool, cool, wow, a lot of hands. As time goes by, it raises, and I really like it. So, Flutter is the cross-platform mobile SDK development kit from Google. It's an open source project. It uses Dart. So you can basically check out the code, like provide something new, or even fix bugs if you want to. The idea of Flutter was they wanted to give you an SDK that you can use to create beautiful applications in short amount of time. For those purposes, they used, for the graphic part, they used an engine called Skia, and this engine helps us to render the view really efficient in a way that we can have 60 frames per second performance, or if you have the device, it can go up to 120. So with the Flutter, all the views that you do is more fluent. And all these apps that you see has been either in production or some examples from the Flutter team. So you can see that all the animations looking really good, and these are all made with Flutter's base concepts. But why animations are important, right? Like, why do we need to implement it? Basically, we work with mostly humans, and humans are visually driven creatures, so when they see something, they learn it faster, or they react faster. So, for example, imagine that you are in an app, you have nothing on the screen, but something is going on. So you need to have something to show them something is going on in the background. And for those, you use some loading indicators and so on, or some animation. And when this user sees that animation, the user will say, okay, something is going on. Now I know that I'm loading data. And believe me, a well-designed, good animation can tell like more than 1,000 words to your users. So that's why animations are really, really important in application development. So now we will go to the real topic, the animations in Flutter part. So in Flutter, animations go basically into two categories. One of them is called tween. Another one is called physics-based. Tween is actually a word meaning in-betweening. So you give a beginning and an end value, and it will interpolate itself between these values. It can be multiple stuff. It doesn't have to be a double or int. It can be a color. It can be a rectangle. It can be anything that you implement. It can be offset, etc. And the physics-based animations are using basically the physics rules that we learned in school to give you a life resembling animation experience. So we will talk about this first. First, we will talk about the tween-based animations and learn what are the base concepts to create an animation. So, for creating an animation, obviously, we need to have a primary building block. And for us, it's animation. Animation is a class that gives you the information about the value that is currently getting animated. So this means, for example, when you have an offset, for getting the information about current offset, for the view that you are creating, you use an animation. And animation class doesn't have any idea about the view on the screen, so it just gives you the information, and you use this information to create your views. But there's a problem with the animation. Animation is, it doesn't have an orchestrator within, so you need to have an external orchestrator to control your animation. For this purpose, Flutter team created animation controller. Animation controller is actually an animation object, but a special one. So this animation object is able to start the animation, stop it, pause it, reset it, etc., gives you the information about the current state as the real animation does. And it helps you to orchestrate multiple animations. So this is a really important thing because we will be using it in the next slides. So animation controller also has a beginning and an end value in default. So it's 0 and 1. You can give other values for the upper and lower bound as doubles for animation controller. And yeah, once you create the animation controller, you can just simply build the other animations by using and orchestrating with the animation controller. So in this screen, we are seeing the Flutter logo, the simple one. As you see, it's animated. The thing about this presentation is a Flutter desktop application. So the animation that you're seeing now is actually a real Flutter application. So I'm going to show you these animations and show you the source code that I used to create these animations so you can see what you have visually here, and you can also see how I created it. So first, I will go to my code. So in this code, we will go from the top and go to the bottom, and I will explain some base concepts for the people who doesn't know Flutter that much. So we can see a special class here called stateful widget. So in Flutter, there are basically two important widgets, stateless and stateful widgets. So from the nature of Flutter, widgets are immutable. So once you create it, it's there. You cannot change it as an idea. But of course, we need to have something dynamic sometimes. And for these purposes, Flutter team created something called stateful widget. Stateful widget itself is immutable, but you have something called state inside of it. It's doing the alterations, doing the changes for your widget, creating the view according to the changes that you provided for the widget in the widget tree. So in our examples, since we are mostly changing values, we will not be working in the stateful widget part, but we will be working with state part. Here we can see state. So we can see here we have animation controller. It's basically a global variable with animation controller. And in the init state, this init state is a special callback for state. So once a state is created, this init state is called. And when I created the init state, I decided, OK, I will create my animation controller here. When I create the animation controller object, as we see, we have two variables here. One is duration. Duration is, as we understand, it's the duration of the animation. But the most importantly, we have something called vsync. So vsync is something we call ticker. Ticker is basically your callback mechanism between the animation frame change and your view. So if you want to have a bridge between your current value of the animation and your view, you need to use tickers. And there are two types of it. One is called single ticker provider, and the other one is ticker provider. If you have one animation controller, just use the single ticker. If you have multiple animation controllers, use the ticker provider. OK, now I created. We have double dot here. It means that we will add something to our animation controller now. We are adding a listener. So in each frame change, this listener will be called. And when I change the frame, I say, OK, I know something has changed. I know there is a change in my frame, in my animation frame. But I need to create my view again, because as we remember, our views are immutable. If I don't recreate it somehow, it will not affect and get something out of it. So what I'm doing here is basically, I'm saying that set state. So I'm saying that something changed with the state, and recreate the view again. So in each frame change, this is what it's doing. And I go a bit down. I'm seeing a special method called build. Build is the part that we create our views. In the part that we create the views, we can see something called opacity. Opacity is basically a container widget that changes the opacity of the child view. And in my child view, I say, OK, have a Flutter logo, big one, expanded. And I say, add a click behavior on tab. I say, controller forward. This means start the animation. But if the animation is completed, As we know, we already have the status from the animation. If the animation is completed, do the reverse. And lastly, and importantly, we have a dispose method. Once a widget is disposed, the state is disposed, we need to also dispose our animation controllers to prevent something happening in the background with the controller. Just cut what it's doing and dispose everything that we have. So yeah, once we run this code, when I click on it, you can see that it's animating from 0 to 1. But there's something that can bother you with this code, this part. I mean, why do I listen to each frame? Why do I have to bother with this, right? Because I have something like a set state over there. It's also empty. It's just waste of time. If you think this, you're right. This is not the optimal version of it. We have something called animated widget. Animated widgets are single-purpose widgets that we use for animating stuff. So what we do here is we just give the animation object to it, and Flutter in the background, it does what it wants to do. And this is more efficient because if you call set state in a really, really, really long widget tree, you might have some maybe performance problems because you are not using keys and stuff effectively. But Flutter is doing everything for you if you use animated widgets. And if we go to the next slide, sorry, to the code, let's see the animated widget of it. The top part is the same as we see. It's the stateful widget. I create the controller. But as you see in the controller, I don't have any listener. And if I go to the widget creation part, I can see something called fade transition. This fade transition gets the opacity as the animation value, and our animation value is right now the controller. I just give it. I don't have anything else. And in the background, it just does the animation opacity change, and you can see it works exactly the same. So using animated widgets for single purpose makes more sense. But let's assume that so far we have only used doubles. But I mean, as I said, we can use colors, we can use rect, we can use offsets, right? And for these purposes, we are using the tween classes. Tween has the same meaning that I told you before. You need to give a beginning and an end value. But good thing about tween is you can either create your own custom tween class to interpolate between two values, or you can already use out-of-the-box tween classes that has been provided to you, like curve tween, color tween, int tween, rect tween, etc. So you can basically use these, give a beginning and an end value as the object types that you create, and you will be good to go. But again, one thing that we are missing is we have always done linear interpolations so far, right? And to be honest, most of the time linear interpolations are ugly. So how do we do like different kind of curves and stuff? And as I say now, we have curves here. Curves are your helpers to adjust the rate of change in your animations. So you can have different type of curves to change the interpolation intervals in a different way. Like, as we see, we have different kind of graphs, and this is only 9 of them. We have even more. Like, you can see bouncing, and mostly that I use in my careers, I think, fast out, slow in, fast in, slow out, decelerate, accelerate, etc. And since we are talking about it, I want to show you an example with the elastic in. So what am I going to do now? As you see here, we have one down arrow in the right corner and the up arrow in the left corner. If you don't see me because of me, I'm sorry. But when I click the down, I have this Flutter logo coming from the top, and it bounces. And if I do the up, it goes up. So let's have this here. It's always nice to have it here. So I will show you how I created this one. Let's go back to the code again. And let me open the exact. So I'm back to my stateful widget again. I didn't do anything extra here until here. Now I have an animation, as I stated, because I'm not using any doubles anymore. I'm using offsets, right? I'm using offset, and I'm using offset to change the position of the animation. And you know what I'm doing? I create the controller in a way that I created before, but animation to bottom part, what I'm doing is I'm using a tween. I'm giving a beginning value as an offset object. I'm saying that in the x-axis, you will stay in the center, but in the y-axis, you stay in the top infinity, let's say, -1, with the -1. And I say, come to the center by saying offset 0. Offset 0 means 0.0, and they didn't want us to create it like separately. So, but the problem with the twins are called animatables. So this means you need to have an animation to animate this animatable thing. And for this, since I'm going to use a curve, I'm using something called curved animation. I'm passing curved animation my controller and give my curve whatever I want to use. I decided to use elastic out, as I said, to have the jumping behavior. And basically, in my child widget, these are the buttons. We can ignore this, but this is the part that we should be looking at. So we have slide transition. And as we remember, slide transition, like there are out-of-the-box things from Flutter as animated widgets, and slide transition is one of them. So what I basically do is simply give my animation object to slide transition and give my child, and it is doing everything in the background for me. I'm not doing anything extra. So once I have this, and these are, as I said, like reverse for going up, forward for going down. These are like, we already talked about this, but once I have this and the other ones, we can have this animation. So, but so far we always talked about one type of animation, right? And we can have staggered animations also, like multiple animations in different types, in different parts of the time frame working or having something. And if you want to implement something like this, we have something called Animated Builder. Animated Builder is really powerful for like big widget trees because it knows how to make the transitions for the widgets. It doesn't have any idea how to do the animation, how to manage the animation. It doesn't have any idea how to create a widget. That's why we give some animation to it and a builder with some widget with it. But on the other hand, with the transition part, it does everything in the background for you. Even though you have multiple animations working with multiple behaviors, you can have everything with this animated builder in one builder file. So, as we see here, I have a box. And when I click on the box, it just rotates, gets separated, and combines itself into one. Like there are like one rotation animation, one color change animation, and one offset animation at the moment. And some of them are happening together, like the separation animation and rotation, but some of them are happening in the different time frames. So how do we implement this? Let's check this out. If I open the code now, this will be a lot of explanation, so brace yourselves. So I started again with the exact same approach, created a stateful widget. Since I have one controller, I created a single ticker provider. And now I have multiple animations because I'm doing multiple things. So first of all, I have a height animation. Like to change, actually it's bad naming. It should be width animation because we are changing the width. Anyway, so this will be changing the width. We have an angle animation to rotate. We have a margin animation because when we only change the height or width of the boxes here, it will be still sticking together. We don't want this. We want to have the gaps in between, right? And for this, we have a margin animation. As we see, we are changing some colors, like color and like there were three types of colors. One was a regular color, one was dark, one was medium, so on. And lastly, since we are also moving them from the left side and right side to the middle, we have offset animations. So let's go to our init state and create this. As we see, we are creating the controller in the same way that we know. So I'm telling this because actually the things that we learned so far is certain. So the things that I'm going to implement here will be mostly the things that I already told you. So it will not be really, really different to you. I will just orchestrate them in one with animated builder. So in tween, I give a beginning and an end value as double. I said the height, but now it's we decided to call it width, from 70 to 45, and use a curved animation. But we have something new here. It's called interval. So when we give a controller to the curved animation, for the interval's sake, the whole time frame is from 0 to 1. So we can think it like in the percentages, like we can think, okay, 0 is the starting point, and if I want to make this animation last until the 25% of the time, we can just say 0 to 0.25. And we can decide when to start the animation and stagger them somehow to create one big, nice animation. For the height, angle, and margin, as we see, they start all together. So rotation and the width change and the separation in between the animations are happening at the same time, right? So they are working in the same interval. After that, I say change the color. And it's the same. I give a color tween, I give a beginning value, and an end value. And I created three different ones with the three different colors. And these are just simple colors that I created. It's nothing special. And lastly, slide animations. As I said, we had two boxes, but we want them to move at the end. And I say, okay, from the half of the interval, go to the 75% and move them. So this is what it does with the offset that we explained before, because for the sake of them, they are in their center already. You want them to move either left or right. And for moving left, it's going to the left end of the screen. And for the moving right, it's the right of the screen. Right end is positive because of the XY axes, and left is the negative. So we created the animations, and let's create the animated builder and see how it works. So I have something called rotation transition. Again, an animated widget to make whole view animate. And for that, I gave the angle animation. It will just get the animation and change the value inside. And I created a column. It's a widget that you can give multiple children to. So we are to create in the column way, let's say. And for the first one, we are sliding to the middle, to the right, right? What I'm doing here is I added a slide transition and add the view. I also changed the height of it, obviously, to make it smaller. And also to keep it in this same place, I also give a margin. So since they are happening at the same time, I don't see the difference. But in the meantime, it's getting smaller. It also gives the margin itself. So we don't see the difference, but this is what's happening in the background. And lastly, I just changed the color. So what it does is it gets the animation, and then in each animation frame change, it recreates this tree. And this way, I'm seeing an animation behavior. In the middle one, we are not doing much. We are just changing the height, margin, and color. And in the right one, we want it to go left. We just add this, and the rest is exactly the same with the top. And this is the button that I used for the animation, but it's not a big deal. And as we see, when we implement this code, this is how it reacts. So we're working with animated builders, can look like different, but when you get used to writing your view code with Dart, you can see that actually it's not a burden. You can see that it's happening somehow really fast. An animation that you can see as a real-world behavior. Flutter has some simulations in their physics file that you can use, like gravity or friction or spring behavior. And you can also create your own simulation, but we will be using the gravity simulation with the free-falling behavior. So I'm starting the simulation. As you know from the physics, when we do the free-falling, as time goes by, it gets faster. It will stuck, so don't worry, I will explain that too. So What it does is I'm giving some information to it, and it is doing the physical behaviors, physical calculation with Newton's second rule of movement, I think it's called in English, I don't know. And it will just create the view for you. And we will see how we create this also. So let's open the gravity example. This part is exactly the same. I'm creating a controller, but this is different. Because with the physics-based animations, we can't bound those what's going on, because we are going to, as I said, it's a real-life resemblance. It's dependent on a lot of stuff. It can be dependent on frictions. It can be dependent on the gravity multiplier, and etc. So we are just saying that, okay, this animation controller is unbounded to a minimum or maximum, upper or lower bound. But we are saying that in here, I'm using my controller to create a gravity simulation. And I'm saying that this gravity simulation's acceleration is 10. By accelerations, they mean basically the gravity of the world. Starting position, I wanted it to start from the top edge, 0. And I want it to go until the pixel number 300. That's why it started slow, went faster, and it stopped in some point. And lastly, you can give a starting velocity, like if it's not a free-falling, but if you're throwing a ball or something. But I didn't want to do this for the sake of simplicity. So yeah, when we run this one, we can see that it starts from the top and goes to this point that I decided. Yeah, so far we have covered what's coming out of the box from the Flutter side, but this is something that excites most of the people. It's called Flare. Flare is announced in the FlutterLive event at December. It's an animation tool, online animation tool that you can use to create animations with, as if you're working with Illustrator, but not that complicated, I think I would say. It's free to use because of the open design movement that they are following. It is created because they didn't want to have a bridge between the designer and the developer. So because of that, they created this view, and using this is super easy. We will see it, but let's see how we can work with Flare. When it is open source, by the way, your work is open source to the others. So like in GitHub or so, you can basically fork other people's work and use it or do something. So Flare is, when you fork someone's work, it looks more or less like this. There's a pane here for designing. You can draw your things and animate them by choosing stuff. You can have your animations in the left bottom corner. So you can have multiple animations and call what you want to animate by the name. And lastly, this is the pane that you're creating the animation. So you have the keys, you have the key points, you just put them there. And for example, in the 0 point, if your height is 100, in the first second, if you put 50 for your height, it will automatically interpolate itself from 100 to 50 linearly, but you can pick the other ones. So when you can export this as binary or JSON. I recommend you to use binary. Binary is it gives you a Flare file, and once you run it, it looks more or less like this. It is an exciting tool if you have a good designer. I work with really good designers, and I've seen they have created a lot of amazing stuff. Actually, yesterday, while I was waiting for after the lunch, I'm terrible, by the way, with the design, but I just wanted to show you how I created in 1 or 2 hours. I created this Android doll. Basically, I drove everything, and what it does is, for example, it can move its antennas, it can wink, flirty, it can wave at you, and it has the most beautiful smile. And all of these are happened, drawing part was the longest part for me. It took a lot of time, but the good thing is you can use SVGs basically to create this kind of stuff. You can just drag and drop it and change the values of the SVG somehow in a way that animated. For this one, I used a circle basically, and if it's 60, if it has a 60 height, it's like this. If it has the 1, then it's just winking at you, or like moving the arm. Not so different. I want to see the smile one more time. So ugly. Anyway, conclusion. So I want to say that please don't be afraid of the animations if you're working with Flutter. I mean, Flutter is really, really helpful about the animations, and they're trying to do a lot of stuff to break the walls between designer and developers, so you can count on that. It's also super efficient, as I said, because of the Skia Engine and stuff. So when you see something on the internet like this, don't be afraid to implement it. Because let me show you, I created a mobile app. This is actually a mobile app, but I'm running this inside of the Flutter desktop app. So it's an appception, so-called. And so, for example, the easing animation that we see is done like this. And believe it or not, I haven't used anything different. And if you think about what we have done so far, you can see that I didn't do anything extra. I just interpolate values. So what to do now? I recommend you to go ahead to the Flutter IO. Right now it's Flutter Dev. And read the documentation about the animations, because I always believe that reading is more stronger than telling. At least it's for me. Check out the code labs for Flutter to get used to it and see how it works, and of course see the animations. Check out the Flutter Medium page. There is a really good blog post by Mikkel Raun, and he created he started from the zero knowledge to advance with these animations. Lastly, I wrote also a blog post. You can check this out and just start implementing. Yeah, so I will share the source code for this presentation on my Twitter. You can follow me. Also, you can follow me on GitHub. If you don't like neither of these, you can always email me if you have questions. So thank you very much for listening, and have a nice day.